I was just trying to see if I could get this all to work here. And I haven't been using the Facebook very much. I've been more or less just reading and writing and trying to analyze and try to see if I could understand. And what happens really is that, Elvis McKeever, I was listening to you just now too, and you make a hell of a lot of sense. And you say what you believe, and I believe that as far as an argument can develop to the point of where we believe or stop believing. What else can we offer people but our beliefs? Because people will say, well, I know, or you know, but you don't know, you believe. There are people who say that, no, you shouldn't believe, you should know. But we believe. And if the beliefs are honest beliefs, then it makes it possible for us to interact with other people according to what we believe. And perhaps our belief will influence them, or maybe their belief will influence us, or both things could happen. We influence them and they influence us. And that is really the dynamic of life. But for people to believe that life is static, it sits in one place, and nothing is supposed to move, nothing is supposed to change, that's a ridiculous concept of life. We know that in our own birth, or with our own birth, and we know at least that we are going to die. So we know that there is something in between birth and death, so it is not stagnant. It is moving. It is not the same all the time. But we have people pitching in and always trying to say that somehow the most important thing is the expediency. And I watched that and I listened to that in regards to the Legislative Assembly and just the nature of the debate. Very divisive. Everybody knows that the country is divided on the issue, and rather than trying to at least come out with honest beliefs, they come out with the belief that they think that the public will endorse and that they will vote for in the next election. So all of this situation with the partnership bill, domestic partnership bill, the entire discussion was just about the re-election or election, the next election. And you imagine that there are people that are actually suffering, or there are people that are actually having to live a tense life and having to live an aggravated life in order to be able to stand up and say, I think we have the right to have our relationship respected by the law. Not by the Bible, but by the law. And I really thought about it, and I thought about the fact that I've been very quiet about this issue. And I'm a sociologist and I'm a politician, and I know that how I could have benefited from this debate some 20 years ago, because I know it would come up. And I thought about it. And I thought about it a lot. I thought about the fact of how it is in families when you disagree with people that are members of your family. You don't share the same beliefs. It's like a civil war. It has haunted me. It's haunted my conscience, And I said, well, look at this. Look at just like Martha Day, who gave me so many of her hours rehearsing my plays. When nobody else would support me, she was there. And could I look her in the face for a long time? No, I couldn't. But I can look her in the face now. Because you know what? At the end of the day, I think that sometimes, like when people would discriminate against me and hold bad things about me, oh, that Frank McField, this and that and the other thing, and some people don't want to speak to me because they figure to speak to me will cause others to not reward them, because they haven't ostracized me enough, and they haven't alienated me enough, and they haven't disrespected me enough, and oh, you with that one and you with the other one. So I appreciated the fact that the debate with regards to the question of whether or not the law and the Bible are separate in the Cayman Islands. And I think that that is a most important point. The people, religion is in the church. It is not in the parliament. It is what they have a right to go to the church and make their petitions, but they don't have a right to come to the parliament or to go to the court and petition it based upon a law that has not been made by parliament. Because parliament is supreme. It is not the Bible that is supreme, it's parliament that is supreme. If the Quran is supreme in Iran, it's supremacy, it's theocracy, it's a theocracy there, not a democracy, but a theocracy. And people need to begin to talk about the differences between a theocracy and a democracy, and what happens when a democracy begins to evolve into a theocracy, which means you need the deity to subscribe to whatever it is that you're doing at the moment in which you're doing it, regardless of who you are. Within that particular jurisdiction, it has nothing to do with your belief. You cannot believe different from what it is told to you that the deity believes. This is that's a theocracy. And it doesn't, we see it. Christian people sit down and they criticize the theocracies of the world. The Quran all the time. The Muslim countries all the time. The Muslim practices all the time. Christian people do. You know why? Because Christian people are acting on the principle of love. Love, and the fact that Jesus Christ was the last sacrifice. There was not supposed to be another sacrifice. So why we continue to want to sacrifice people? Why we continue to want to judge people in a spiritual, moral way? That is one reason why the law is separated from our belief, from our faith. Because you cannot make laws out of faith. That's fatal. You have to make laws out of what people can consent to. And if somebody consents to be a member of a society, they consent to upholding the law as long as they're treated as equal under the law, in the court of law. And Elvis was making some good statements there about the ganja, and the way they have just incarcerated people and destroyed people's lives and mocked the fact that these ganja smokers from West Bay were having their idea of deity, of the divine. People use the word God, but God is just a calling word. It's a title. It does not fully describe what it is that I believe in. I believe in more than that word itself connotates to me. So I would have to go into a very deep discussion with people for people to understand what I mean by deity and the fulfillment of my expectation as a consciousness or a part of the consciousness of that divine being, whatever name you want to use. But what I am saying is that a democracy is something that is a low, it's a low way of governance. It's a point where people come to agree from different classes and different races and different professions and backgrounds. So it's a low standard of morality. Democracy cannot work as the highest standard of morality. It would be incredible. We'd be having to cut off people's heads every second. We'd have to put people in jail. We have to whip people all the time. People would be breaking the law. So a democracy is not that. People work on Sundays, and Sunday is supposed to be a holy day, or people say it's Saturday, and some say it's Sunday, and they debate about it, they fight about it, and they make wars about it, they destroy people's lives about it, and a democracy is supposed to be where we go and make logical arguments. We do not go there and carry our beliefs and our superstitions to the point where we cannot pay attention to the beliefs and the superstitions that are being put forward by the other people that are in the parliament or that have the right to debate and discuss what the outcome of our considerations should be. My problem with the whole thing in terms of the debate is it was not treated seriously. They acted as if none of them had been to university. They acted as if none of them had been influenced by moral values and moral conscience. They acted as if none of them had heard Dr. Martin Luther King address people as a Christian man, address the whole question of America being the country where people had the right to protest for rights. The right to protest for rights is what he called the American system, the democratic system. Now, when you take away the right from people to have rights, to protest for rights, to petition the government for rights, and when you fail to pay attention to the courts and the decision of the courts in the case that we have just seen, then if the court make a decision in regards to me, why the hell should I pay attention to it? Why should I care what the bloody court says? Because if there are people in the churches that want to disobey the court and say the court is irrelevant and the Bible is only, I can find things in the Bible that I can justify doing a whole lot of things. And they're not going to let me go into court and plead, God told me to do this and God commanded me to do this. They're going to put me in bloody Northward or worse. So I'm saying, what did we have going on in what is supposed to be the parliament? What kind of attitude was that? The government bringing a bill because they know it was going to be rejected anyway, and then it was going to put the Cayman Islands people in trouble with the United Kingdom, and it was all mama this and mama that because mama is the queen and mama and mother is the queen and mother England this and mother England that. Until she says to you, I don't want to protect you, but I tell you also what I think is right for you to do, and you must do it. And then all of a sudden we show disobedience. And the same disobedience that we can see the children showing to the parents in this country, and all of it is confused, because if somebody was saying, I'm disobeying the English because they refuse to make a law that people have a decent living wage in this country, I could go. But nobody fights for any kind of justice except for the justice to be a damn hypocrite. Nobody fights and thinks about the wages and the cost of living and all of those things, because that is supposed not to be important. What's important is us just being a bunch of damn hypocrites among ourselves, because each one of us is a damn liar. We lie too much. We're too dishonest. And we placate people and we play with people. And this is why our country is in the state that it's in now. And let me tell you what's happening internationally in this world. A lot of people do not understand. But there are going to be damn hard days coming up here. America is in trouble. We have survived off of America. Even our food supply comes from America. What happens to America will happen to us, people. It is not time to be dividing our country. It is not time to be having problems with the mother country. It is not time for that. If you look at what's going on in Venezuela, if you look at the kind of arms they have in Cuba, if you look at what's going on in Grenada, if you look at the gangs in Trinidad, and you look at the gangs in Jamaica, then you'll understand why they're making a regiment. And they're talking about regiments, and they're talking about doing photographs and surveying the country and trying to understand the terrain here and all of this, because they know what the hell is happening in this world. And we are just here trying to put down young girls because they're seeking some kind of support for their relationship. Legal support, not a support from a church, not a support from a minister, not a support from the Bible, but a support from the laws that is supposed to treat everybody equal, in a parliament that is supposed to debate everybody's situation seriously and not make a damn joke of it. I prefer for people to not ever want to vote for me rather than to lie against my conscience. And that's the reason why I spent so much time on the streets in this island. We need to wake up and understand that the things will fall upon us. They will fall upon us, and I said it in Downside Up long time ago. The sins of the fathers will fall upon the children. We have been too proud of people. Just looking at other people, waiting to see how we could condemn them. Oh, look at her. This old this and this old that. No, man. What I saw is that law was not abstract, because there were people that had caused that law, that motion, to be brought to the house. They are real people, you know. And that's why it's not easy for me. They're real people. And how can people get up there and act like a bunch of strutting men, like with their chest pushed out like rooster, and showing how well they can talk and how well they can laugh with each other and how well they can do this and how well they can do that, because they are privileged and they're paid a lot of money to come in there and fool around and not even bring a good argument that could satisfy any politician in England to say, well, they made a good effort to at least treat what we want for this country seriously. What they have done is prove that there are a bunch of jackasses in there. There are a bunch of jackasses in there. They do not understand that this was a very serious attempt to divide this country. That's a very serious thing. If we can't handle making a partnership law, look at it. Suku's talking about all the loopholes that it would start and this and that and the other thing. You're talking about all the loopholes. I have people talking about the thing about me all the time. While I'm dying, while I'm starving, while I have no kind of situation for me. And I know a lot of other people like that. They're sitting down there acting and talking, and the person is dying of need. The person is dying of nerves because of the fight and the battle that you have put them into, having to rage against the system. And you sitting there and you well paid and you pretending that the only thing that you want to get out of this is a stage for the next election. Ard McLean should be damn shame of himself. And I heard him on some show today acting as if, well, you know, he's more or less saying that, well, it'll happen because, yes, they want it to happen. But they don't want to be a part of it happening. They don't want to take up the honest position and say this is why it must happen. They want somebody else to do it for them because their mentality is still a slave mentality. Let Massa do it. Give it back to Massa. And then people are going to tell you that they're running your country right. They're not running your country right, because if they were running your country right, they would stand up and they would take the blame for what is right. The churches are wrong about this issue, and I'll tell you why. First of all, we don't like to listen to each other. And the churches historically have been the worst listeners. All we got to do is read history. People act as if when we're talking about the church, we're talking about a few buildings in Cayman. That's not the church. The churches are not buildings. The churches are institutions. Catholic, Protestant, whatever. The church is institution. The church has had a conflicted existence from the very beginning. A conflicted one. And we all as human beings are conflicted. So we are not about that. And therefore the final judge is God. It's not the church. It's not for them to condemn somebody because they say they're gay or homosexual or whatever the term we want to use. It's not the church's job to condemn people. That's what Jesus told them. Pharisees and bloody hypocrites. That's what they are. They're condemning people. They condemn the guy who smoked the weed. They condemn Frank McPhail. They condemn people that they don't agree with or they don't take the time to listen to. They do not take the time to feel the suffering of the mothers that children are in this situation. My son is 18 years old. I don't know what choices he's going to make. I haven't had the nerves to even discuss them with him. But what should I do if my son said he prefers to be with a man? Kill him? Cut him off? Cause him to commit suicide? Come on, people. Come on. God is talking to you. Come on. What would you do? What would you do but fight for your child? And beg for your child? And plead for your child so that your child, with the choice your child has made, can still see God's face? What are you telling me? That they can't see God's face? But those of you who are robbing people by taking their labor from them and giving them nothing back in return, by those who are keeping people in prison and will not pay for rehabilitation programs or allow rehabilitation programs, they can't see God? They're not going to see God? Well, what kind of church are those types of people in? What kind of church? You know, the people who have come and set themselves up as pastors mostly to spend their time preaching and not teaching, intimidating people rather than motivating people, bringing people down rather than lifting people up. The gospel is about forgiveness. It begins with forgiveness. The sacrifice which Jesus Christ made, or God made, was about forgiveness. If God is forgiving us, who is then to say they're not going to forgive us? If each one of us are born into sin, then which one of us should cast the first stone? You remember the scenes in the Bible where people were stoning to death people, like they still do in these Muslim countries, where the government is controlled by the Quran. They still do those things. And there are a lot of preachers that are preaching in America, that are preaching as evangelical Christians, that are responsible for a lot of the messed up that is going on in America today. They have empowered Donald Trump to believe that he can use religion to interfere with democracy and people's rights. America is on the path to damnation. America has divided itself. And these people, they call themselves Christian nationalists. These people that carry guns, these people that believe in the so-called New World Order. Well, the New World Order started in 1492 when Columbus sailed the blue, 1492, and starts enslaving the native people in these areas that we now live as at least me, as a former or descendant of African slaves. That's when the New World Order started. What's going on today is just that China and Russia are taking the power over from America, and they got people in America that are right there giving up this power. They're giving up this power because these people are capitalists, international capitalists. They don't care because the money don't belong to America or China. It belongs to the rich. It's no Chinese capital. There's no American capital. It is only the capital of the individual corporation or the individual thing. We don't own anything as people. So we have to understand the way in which the power configuration of the world is being moved and shifted. Now, if you take now what is happening in this country now to create a split within our society, that's not cool at all. Because you see that is the strategy that is being employed by the devil internationally, is to split the societies based upon religion. In most cases, it's based upon religion. But it is based upon the interpretation of certain scriptures as well. Everybody's going to have a different interpretation for the scriptures. And that's what it's all about. The scriptures were not written for somebody to say, this is made in stone. The scriptures were made to give us an idea, to help us to the point where we could focus on the divine, to focus on things that were or consciousness that was worth emulating, worth caressing, worth pursuing. There are people that don't go to church that are much more spiritual and much more like Christ-like than most of those people that break down the church doors. It's true. Christians need to challenge themselves to be better Christians by being more helpful to their community. I have come to find out that people like to keep secrets. People like to be accepted, but at the same time, they know they play the game, but behind the scene, they're somebody else. I've always tried to be the same person all the time if I can afford to be it. Because it's important. It's important that our values are sufficient, that we can show them publicly and privately as the same values. I'm not going to say I have that kind of friend, but if you see me with that kind of friend, that's not my friend when you see me with the person. And you get a lot of Christians like that. They want you to come to church because it increases the numbers of members, therefore the collection or the value or the economic value of the church. Therefore the preacher is better off, the first lady is better off, everybody drives better cars, and so everybody's improved. Religion is not to complete us. It is to activate us. It is to motivate us to believe that there's something superior, something better than this hell that we are as human beings, this dirt that we are, that we can rise above the dirt, that we can crucify the ego, that we can put this little heaven within us, before us, or me, that we can do this by showing the example of how we are towards other people, not towards ourselves. We do not become Christian by being good to ourselves, but being good to others. And there are Christians today that do not pray without the whole idea of getting some materialistic reward from Christ. That's part of the deal. You give me this and I'll give you that. It's an exchange, it's a trade. No, that's not what it is. Because I don't get nothing don't mean that I don't worship God. But do I have to worship in public? Do I always have to make my statements in public? Do I have to explain to people exactly how it is that I feel? Well, if somebody asks me, then I will. But I know I might feel one way and you might feel one way different. But that doesn't mean that our focus is not the same God. So what we need to always be doing is making it easier for us to understand each other through Christ. To understand, to gain understanding, because it's about gaining understanding, and that understanding will be the love. Love will come from that understanding. And then we won't want to put somebody down. I mean, if somebody's doing something that I don't necessarily agree with, and I might feel, well, they're not really right, then I would talk to them, and if they don't listen to me and they want to do what they want to do, what am I supposed to do then? String them up? Turn my back on them? When you say that people come to Christ and they say, I don't want that, you turn your back and go away. Well, a good Christian will continue, because the salvation the person will receive is so richly blessed that you wouldn't even want your worst enemy to miss out. My goodness, we have to stop condemning other people so that we could feel good and righteous and perfect. You know how perfect I am? Because I just told you how bad this one is and the other one is? No. The perfection is something that we have to achieve by ourselves. And that's the hard part. So if we're going to get knocked out of heaven or knocked out of salvation simply because we do one thing different from other people, then that's a hard game that we're playing. And a lot of people are not going to play that because, I mean, the odds of winning is so minute. People make it seem as if the odds of going to heaven is minute. Why should it be? Why should it be? Did God just make us just to use us and just to burn us up or give us to somebody else to burn up and all of that sort of stuff? I try to imagine, that somehow like I'm like a word within the consciousness of God. I'm part of the consciousness and the conscious activity of God. In the beginning was the Word. And the Jews said, and the Egyptians said, the word's a living spirit. So imagine, if you would imagine yourself as part of God's consciousness, of God's conversation with himself, that all that exists in this universe is God. And we are only God's thoughts and God's feelings and the dynamics of the Holy Spirit and the Holy Ghost and all that sort of stuff. So there's so many things a Christian can wonder. And part of the things that people say is that this life is the journey of the soul. Abraham takes the journey of the soul. That's what that's all about, the Abrahamic journey. We know that when we're talking about King David and King Solomon, we're talking again about the temples and the journeys of the soul. And it's about enlightenment. It's about enrichment. And just how David and Solomon speak about wisdom and knowledge and how long it takes to achieve. Well, it doesn't become any easier. It doesn't mean if people make a mistake or two mistakes that you throw them in the pit and then that's it. That's what Jesus is telling us. Jesus is saying from the very beginning, look at you guys, I'm not picking anybody that is perfect. But providence is a conspiracy on our behalf. So there's a conspiracy that's going on all the time that we feel that we're failing. There's somebody that's behind the scenes working for us to hold us up and to make sure that we keep on following that truth, that never-ending truth. That's not a building. That's not a congregation that can sit and agree to judge me or you or anybody. That is the Almighty Spirit. And the Almighty Spirit is not just having us here just to bloody well judge us and then condemn us and then burn us up. So when we begin to discuss religion like that in our parliament, people say, well, these people are really backwards. What kind of Christian they are? They're not tolerant at all. They sound like these people in America, these real hicks. I mean, sometimes the preacher might tell you that education is not all that important, but it is, because otherwise they wouldn't get educated. The preachers read, and the preachers do this, but the preachers want to have an agreement just like the politician. The preachers are looking for the congregation to say, yeah, amen, preacher, you preach it right. You tell them, preacher. They no good, preacher. They're going to be condemned, preacher, and we're going to be saved, preacher. That's exactly what the politician does. The politician is just like the preacher. All they're looking for is a support for themselves and their family. They're not on the field. They're not going out there and taking risks. They have to have security. Ask them which one is preaching today without security. So when they're telling people how they should behave as individuals, I think they're going too far. I think they can tell their congregation how to behave. I think they can teach them how to behave. And if they behave that way, well, God bless them. But I don't think that they should go beyond their churches and try to influence the politics in a way. Because what is it about the human beings that all of a sudden you make a domestic partnership law so these little girls can have this thing and all of a sudden everybody turn queer? Huh? Everybody going to turn queer? You think everybody going to want to do that? We all have our different preferences. That's what the debate should be about. I think I've read enough in the scientific journals I think as a human being, and I started off early in terms of I'm an old man. I'm 70, going to be 72 soon, so I've been in Europe. I was at Woodstock. I was in America at the time. When people were, 69 was the year of Woodstock. 69 was when the gay movement really started, 1969. I never had no problems with no gay people in all the places that I went. I had people make a joke, and when we took over in 2001, some nasty person wrote me a letter saying that I had met my wife Christiana in a gay bar in Germany. And I know who they are. They're one of those people are now in the parliament. Because I could tell how their minds work, the Catholic mind work sometimes. Okay? No, I don't bring the sexuality into the religion. I don't bring the sexuality into the religion, or let's say the spirituality. Because sometimes when we talk about religion, it's almost like talking about these institutions, so maybe I should use the word as Haile Selassie does to say, make a difference between spirituality and religion. So I went through all of these things, and I never judged nobody. Because, I mean, if I meet a good person, come on. Am I going to hold it against them, the fact that they are attracted to a man and he's attracted to another man, or a woman and they're attracted to another woman? No, you know why? Because at the end of the day, as long as he allows me to make my choices, which wouldn't be to have that man, then what am I going to say? What has he done to me? He made me afraid that if my child see him, that my child going to be that way? Is that why they are that way? Because they saw people? Who did they see? I don't know. But you know, the point is that we don't not need to simplify something that hurts people. I think that's the point. I didn't like the way the parliament dealt with it. It's not just a thing about the Christianity part or the Christian part, because not all Christians think that way. Not all Christians think that way. And that's doctrine. That's Christian doctrine, that church doctrine. It's not in the New Testament Bible. And there's a big difference between the New Testament Bible and the Old Testament Bible. Judeo-Christianity is not Judeo-Christianity at all. There's more in Christianity than that. The Jews never accepted Christ. So why is everybody jumping back to Judaism? Why are they jumping back to Judaism? Christ speaks about love. Let's deal with love. Let's deal with Christ. Christ's love, like my mother loved. My mother loved me, loved me, loved me, loved me, loved me. And it's a good thing that I had such a loving mother. Because all the things that I've done in this world, everything that would have disappointed a mother, but she loves me. That's how, that can't even explain how God loves us. Come on. Come on. Listen to me. You can't be doing this thing in this country that is a Christian country. Because to be Christian is to be Christ-like. To be Christ-like. My brother George taught me to be Christ-like. And when we are Christ-like, we start forgetting about what we don't like and what we like. And we start thinking about other people. What would please you, ma'am? Sir, what could make you happy? You come before me. We put others before ourselves. People are just jumping out here. Let me tell you, Martha Day, I'm ashamed of myself. I'm ashamed that I never came to you and said these things to you. Because this country is wicked. Wicked. And they hide behind religion. But they are wicked people in this country. And they have to stop doing these things to people. They have to stop thinking that people are just objects for ridicule, objects to exploit. I am surprised that a country continues to say that it is Christian. I can say I'm a Christian if I want to. You can say you're a Christian, but how do we say a country is Christian? A country is Christian. Where? It's not a Christian country. Countries are not Christian. Christianity doesn't speak to countries. It speaks to individuals. Speaks to individuals. You're an individual, and you're going to have to judge yourself and be judged by yourself as an individual and not as a country. So where the argument of the country came into this from? Where did the argument of the country come in when the New Testament is not talking about countries? It's talking about individuals having to answer, not countries. Oh, you just don't like to see it. Oh, I don't like this and I want this way. I don't like to see niggers. I don't like to see this. Discrimination is bloody discrimination. It hurts for whatever reason. I'm so happy, I'm telling you, that I am not a homosexual, because I don't know how I would have dealt with it. But I am sorry to all the people that I know that are, that sometimes I wasn't so nice to. People that even in my family, and that is not a good thing. That wasn't nice. And I am not going to be one who jump up on a political platform at this particular time and try to say, oh, it's right to suppress them. Oh, it's right to ridicule them. No, it's not. This is a big test for all of us. This is a big test to see how we handle ourselves as Christian people. Do we cast the first stone? Yes, we do. We cast the first stone. We cast the first stone. And when we come back down to the point of England, where the governor is saying, we disrespected the rule of law. I think the Premier, Mr. Alan McLaughlin, explained the point. Because if you're getting a recommendation from the court, and you say, screw the court is wrong, I'm right. What pastor tells me is this, what pastor tells me is this. And we can make a big movement out of this. And we can do this out of this because we have the numbers. Well, it will destroy your country. It's going to destroy the country. If there's no one who's willing to bend at the end, it will destroy the country. Jesus Christ had a choice. He sent his disciples to take what little they had to buy some swords. Jesus Christ had a plan. He said, okay, we saw the swords. We knew the situation that those particular people were in. The Romans were terrible people. And he made a choice not to shed blood, not to seek vengeance, not to do it that way, but to crucify, have his ego crucified. Have that part of you that is run by people, run by the society, run by the government, run by religion. Have that part crucified so that heaven within, you could come to the realization of who you are in God. So, if we have compassion, we will not deny people rights to live the life that they want to live. It was the responsibility of every member of the Legislative Assembly to assist the people, with making this decision, not to ask the people, because we know what kind of education we had in this country and what kind of exposure we had in this country as people who were colonized for all of these years. We had no churches here even in 1834 when slavery was abolished, or we had the first one that came about around that time. Church became interested in us. Not just us, the black ones, but also the poor white ones they were not interested in. We had people that did not have the kind of education that I have been privileged to have. It's all something that's come to us at this particular time. We cannot say to the people that democracy means giving you the right to do whatever you want. Democracy is about making rational choices. That's why we hire people to represent us. We don't hire people to represent us, to tell us, to ask us what we want. We want them to be able to say, this is what my people want and what they deserve to have, and why, what, if they get that, why it will make a better society. They have to make that argument to you, and they have to make that argument to everybody. You know? I mean, I was very disappointed in Kenneth Bryant, very disappointed in his whole attitude. Come on. Come on. He knows. He knows that it hurts. He knows it hurts the people whose children are being impacted. It hurts all of us in our community that we don't have the humanity or the Christian characteristics to render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar and unto God the things that are God. You just want to control everything. You want to have power and dominion over everyone, and that's what you call Christianity. Well, yeah, I'm sure that this has been the lessons that we've been taught by the Roman Catholic Church in particular. You force everybody to do what you want them to do, one way or the other. You deny people rights. You enslave people. You do what you want because you own God. God don't own you. We have to have this discussion. We have to. I hang with gangs. I've been studying gangs from 62. I'm from 72. Guns, big shot, bad man. But you know who the big shooters always are? The little guys that are effeminate little guys. And some of those guys don't even know these are the killers. Some of them are, because even the Romans knew that the best killers were these types of men. So it's not, nobody can go and say, oh yeah, they're weak. They're not weak. They're not weak. They're not weak in industry, and they're not weak in a fight. They don't back down. They keep their promises. They'll probably be more honest than so-called straight people. I mean, I'm not up on the language in terms of what you call say to this one, to say to the other one, to be politically correct. But I'm trying here to just express my feelings. The worst thing to me is to insult another person's dignity, regardless of what they believe that dignity is. I've always had a problem with that. I can't do it. And maybe just because I'm too idealistic. Maybe I just went to those wrong universities and I started at a wrong time. But I just have been following always principles, not principles about things, what I got. It's about what I feel in my soul. Is it good with my soul? And if God says to me, speak about it, I'm going to speak. And I have never been on the right side of an argument, ever. Ever have I been on the right side, because you have to put yourself on the side of the people who are organized to win the argument. And that's like cheating to me. That's like the guys who gamble. I don't gamble. I do not gamble. So I never know what the result of anything I say or anything I do will be. I just do things and say things. I just had it in my heart before this all happened to say to myself, what a damn hypocrite you are, Frank Macfield. You're something else. You know something is going on with people that love you, that you love, that stood with you, and you walk and talk like it's not important. But the swords have been drawn, and maybe this was the right time for me to take a stand when it's critical. But the point is people in a democracy, we do not make decisions based upon our faith. We make decisions based upon persuasive argument that have to do with the materialistic existence in which we live in. These are flesh questions. They are not questions that have to do with our faith, because it has to do with governance. And church must be able to say that, because otherwise church would be destabilizing every bloody country that they were in. Before you know, the politicians would be hunting them down again and getting rid of them, because that's happened also in history. For those of us who have studied history, the church has not always been popular. The church has not always been establishment. What we got to do is look at some of the very difficult histories of the church, and the church also having been involved with a lot of oppression and crimes against humanity. At least the leaders of the church, and in many cases the Roman Catholic Church. Now, so when we are brought into the argument, because I said that all of this has to be put into context with what is happening in the world generally. There is a shift in the balance of power, and let us understand that. I have spent quite a lot of time over the last 3-4 years reading, researching, and writing, and this is one of the reasons why I haven't been public about many things, because some of the theories or some of the ideas which I'm coming up with will not necessarily be seeming to be so rational and sometimes so pleasing to people. But when we look at what happened 1 century ago with the flu and the civil war in Spain, and then we had the First World War, and then we had the Second World War later on. And this was before, again, in the 18th century and the 17th century. Every time, if you go and you look at the world, you see they come always to a climax, or to a point of crisis or catharsis, where we go crazy and we start killing each other. We start wiping out each other as if that's the way we control population. 60 million people in the Second World War. 60 million people and more. That's how we can deal. Human beings are strange creatures. But when we look at this pandemic, how it started, how we locked ourselves down here in the Cayman Islands. We were locked down. Everybody say, Lynn did a good job. Well, what kind of, if you make the call and say we're going to lock people down, what else you got to do is just have a lot of police on the road. And if you got good citizens, then it'll be a successful thing. You lock them down. But the point is that even the crab that bury itself have to come back up at one particular time to eat. And what is going to come when it comes back out of the hole to find to eat is going to be an important question, because if the crab doesn't find what it needs to eat, then it's going to be a whole lot of trouble and a whole lot of war. When we shut this country down, this country came back up with a vengeance. Employers start cutting people's wages. They start doing these things different. Everybody start changing up on people. Everybody was thinking about was survival. Is my business going to survive now? Am I going to survive? Nobody gives a damn about the next person coming back out of this. And it's going to get worse. Because America is, they said when America sneezes, Cayman catch cold. We built our tourism based upon America. And America is in a crisis, and America is not going to be straightened out, I'm telling you. And we need to be thinking about how we're going to survive. What about food security and all those things? That's what those legislators need to be thinking about. Where are we going to get our food from? Oh, America's working okay now, but you don't know about tomorrow. You don't know. Russia and China completed a bridge between each other. There's 21 kilometers before all of this started. And that was the first time in history. The Russian Revolution was in 1917. And the Trump Revolution was in 2017. You take those two 17s, 1917 and 2017, and then you start asking me, what am I talking about? What am I talking about? Is there any place in Scripture that we could look to see what is happening? Yes, there are places. And there are people in America that predicted this whole thing happening. This is a whole new world order. In a way, it's a whole shift in the balance of the power that has to do with the value of the dollar and the command in which the dollar has had, deciding the price of oil, deciding the price of gold, and deciding the price of everything. You imagine that American currencies after the Second World War became a currency that was able to rule the world economically, and America is losing the point. You know why? Because in 1972, Richard Nixon went to China and made a deal with China, and the Caymanian financial system was created. Our entire tax system, our entire financial system was created in order to funnel money over from U.S. to China and other places, to create the kind of capital that was necessary for the Chinese to develop, because they perceived that China would be their market, not that they would be China's market. But the Chinese switched it around on them. And this is the problem. America is indebted to the Chinese in particular, and the Russians and the Chinese are allies, and Iran is an ally, and Venezuela is an ally, and Cuba is an ally, and we're sitting here on this little island without any kind of protection. You think two little boys that they sent to Sandhurst Military Academy in England gonna help us? Come on, people don't fight with no guns like that no more. They throw a missile on your backside. They can sit in their own place, in their own front yard, and they can guide a missile, or they can guide a this, and they can guide a that. All these things. That's what we need to be thinking about. If anything happens, where are we going to get our food from? Who's going to feed us? We going to be feeding ourselves? No. We need to think about that. The politicians need to be thinking about that. We've been talking about food security to them for years now, about establishing plantations in Honduras and Nicaragua, that at least we have a quick jump to there. 99-year lease, just like the banana companies and the pineapple companies and all that did. We can grow some food here. We should do that. But our population is growing, and they want to grow this place. You can see by the apartments and all that they're building here. But what about the security? What about the price of food? What about the price of labor? What about all these things that they need to be able to deal with in this country? So, what I'm saying is that domestic partnership bill was not to make that partnership marriage. That's why it's called that. But Mr. Suku going to find loopholes in it because other people might come and use it, so the people who are waiting to get their rights can't have their damn rights. And he don't have an alternative for it. They should wait to get their rights. Well, boy, in the days of the machine gun and everything, people all know what would happen in some people's minds. You must wait for your rights because this got a loophole in it. Well, if he found out they had a loophole, then he should have come and he should have offered amendments. He should have offered amendments to the bill. It should have been amended. He should have had all those amendments there and not wait until afterwards to come and say, well, I wrote against it because of my religious beliefs, but really, at the end of the day, the reason why I really wrote it against it was because it was all these loopholes and other people would use it. So you just continue to deny a person or people rights that they are entitled to without bringing an alternative. You should have brought some amendments. And back to the whole thing about Kenneth Bryan and me behave in terms of the way he behaved. I mean, so everybody says, okay, if we don't do it, then England is going to do it. So that's the salvation, that England is going to come do it for us. England shouldn't come do a damn thing for us. Make us do it ourselves. Let us own it. We need to be big children now, stop being little children. Let us own it. Find the amendments. The fact that people were really even able to accept that partnership bill law rather than the marriage thing, I think meant that these young ladies and their supporters and parents made a tremendous compromise and donation to peace and good governance. They did. Because they could say, no, we want the same thing. So if some of the pastors in this country has the intellectual capacity, I would ask them if they don't see that people who marry through the Bible have to still marry through the law. Because nobody is legally married through the Bible. There's a marriage law. And they're not using that law. Because the Bible is not empowered to marry anybody. The law is the only thing empowered to carry out that sacred ceremony. And these people were offered an alternative, and obviously it seems that they felt it was not what they wanted, but they would at least satisfy with it, which I thought was a great compromise on their part, because they could have gone for the whole thing. And if Suku found out that, look, there are too many loopholes in this one going to come in and use it, that one going to come in and use it, but that's almost with all the laws, then what he should have done is to brought in the amendment, or brought in another bill, or a replacement bill, or an amendment bill to that bill. Some way they should have done something. If the oppositions were so sure, and when I heard Arden today speak, and I said to myself, boy, that guy's something else. He's speaking as if, well, England gonna do it anyway. So we're not taking nothing away from you. England gonna do it anyway, but what about the fact that we need to do these things for ourselves? We need to take responsibility for the moral conduct of our nation, whether or not it gives people rights or take rights. whether or not you have to be a Christian to have a right or not. And we know that in these countries, you don't have to be a Christian to have a right. And being a Christian does not give anybody a right, because somebody can come in here as a Christian and they don't have permission to be in the country, and they can't be here because they're Christian. So the rights that the Christians have are the rights that they have because they're Caymanians, not because they're Christians. So we have to make it clear that there is a difference between the church and the state. The fact that they put that little piece in the Constitution about them, their culture and all that being Christian culture, that's a recognition of the culture and the value of the culture to the people of the country, to the people of that culture. But we also know that the culture is changing because other people are coming here and they're bringing their culture here with us. And we allowed them to come here because we open our doors to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And we now want the population to be a few 100,000 people. My goodness. A few 100,000 people. You see the number of wealthy apartments that are being built here? People like myself can't even afford anything because I can't get a bloody job here. And I won't do certain things. And I feel I should be rewarded for all the studies that I've done. And the horrible politicians in this country. They wouldn't even say, okay, Dr. McPhill's been doing research all this time. Give him at least a little grant. All of those things, man. So we not for real, you know. We not for real. We don't help each other. We kick each other. That's why they went at those girls. We don't know what it is to help somebody who's struggling with a challenge. We bury them. I'll bury you if I see you hurting. And that's what I hate about it. And I didn't want to come out and talk about it as if it's going to be a problem that Britain's going to solve or whatever it is. And he's a politician elected and he can't solve the problem. Because he's opposition and they're waiting to catch the government. Man, I tell you one thing. Sometimes I really want to be an angry man, you know. Really, 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 because it's not right that the politicians should only just use the weaknesses of people to get upon them. All of the promises that these people made in the last election. And we come back and we have the same system where labor in this country is taken advantage of. My wife, when she went back to work, you imagine, after the COVID, and they put her pay down from $10 an hour to $3.50 an hour with commission at number one shoe shop. People that I know well. People that I worship with. Come on, man. Where's the dignity of the people in this country? Everybody just worshiping things, worshiping materialism, and then talking about Christianity and people not having rights because this is offense to Christians. What should be offending to Christians is the fact is that they are slaves of wealth, of money, that they hoard it and they make sure that nobody else can't get their hands on it. And that's the reason why they killed Martin Luther King. Because he was protesting for rights for people to have an economic stake in the society, to be able to raise their children and not that their children become gunmen in the ghettos, not that they destroy the family. They've destroyed the family and they're talking about protecting marriage. Protecting marriage, then why don't they give the women some more maternity leave? Why don't they give them some more time to spend with their children that are the little bad boys at John Gray School there? Why don't they do something to make women feel that they are as valuable in the workplace as men? And they should be rewarded accordingly. Why does somebody just look at what's going on in the employment of people in the hotels? Why is it that we're not working in the hotels as Caymanians? It's because it's with the disadvantagement and the confusion that we come upon there. Nobody wants us there. They want to bring in labor that they can control. Slave labor, we're still allowing them to exploit people in this country in so many ways. I saw a joke about a politician picking up a woman from the bar. So what's new? People want to laugh at that. And then if you were queer, they would laugh at that too. But then none of us that are righteous, none of us, we need to work with the problems that we have in order to bring them to light so that we can, as responsible people, use our rationality to seek answers and find answers to these challenges which we have in terms of living together as a people. There's a reason why God gives us time on this earth. We're not just here to make mistakes and be judged and thrown in hell. This is a very important part of our passing through, of our experience as souls with flesh. So we should let everybody have a piece of the pie, because this is about fulfilling some of those needs that the flesh has. Because we have feelings that we would not feel in the spirit that the flesh feels. So why is it that you don't want children to have an education and get a good job? Or people who have a job that's a menial job to get a better pay and to get training and to have the idea of developing an ideal society, a good society, the New Jerusalem. What's wrong with having dreams and ideals? And you come back every time with this whole idea people come back with about we're Christians, so we're good people, and we know this and we know that. Open the mind. Open the mind, please. And let's start listening. Let's start reading. Let's start thinking. Let's start debating. Let's try to find how we can build a New Jerusalem. Let's bring the arguments from the Bible, the examples from Scripture. Let's bring the ideas from the sociologists. For instance, I mean, when the Jews were building, they didn't start building the nation. They start building the family. The family builds the community builds the nation. But we can't do that no more, because nobody building families anymore. Nobody concentrating on families. And so the nation is weak. The nations are weak. So why don't we just, okay, let's start building communities? Because the community has to be there for the single mama and single daddy, because people are not going to in these kinds of relationships anymore where one man goes and marries one woman. And we've had that with black people and with Caribbean people for so long. We think that people would stop being hypocrites and come out and try to find workable solutions to the fact that the fact of their infidelity. Because all them men that get up there as politicians, the thing about the sacredness of the marriage and all that kind of stuff. I mean, come on. I'm a man, but I'm not a damn hypocrite. I'm not a hypocrite. And I know exactly what men do, or what they wish to do if they can't do it. So, in the West Indies in particular, we have these issues. So why is it that we're making it so hard for the baby mama? Because the baby mama is raising a child. A child didn't choose the culture. It's been here. The daddy didn't choose the culture either. The culture has been here a few hundred years already. It's all an outgrowth of the plantation system in the Caribbean. And it has been one of the things that defeat us in our attempt to solve the problems of crime, because we're not being realistic. We expect these people to change and marry and have stable families, and it's not going to happen. So we need to help build stable communities. That's where the government puts in the infrastructure to help people to be able to maintain that role that they play as the maternalistic leader of the family or in the community. And I mean, I heard people say a long time ago that the women have always been there, and the men went to sea, and the women stayed home, and that's a matriarchal society. But white societies weren't matriarchal society; they're patriarchal society. So it says that there was a big African influence on the families in the Cayman Islands. So even those that might not have been African were influenced. And there's a big African influence in the Cayman Islands because it was a small population and so forth and so on. I don't want to get into explaining that, but what I want to do is just sort of say that the whole thing of marriage is something that is sacred, is something that we have not been observing in the Cayman Islands anyway. Slaves were not even permitted to marry. And these people were Bible hopping, praying people. So it's only about how people use the Bible to justify what they want to do. But they don't own the Bible. They don't own the gospel. They can't stop people from being a part of it. They can't stop somebody because they're gay from being a part of the gospel and accepting the gospel and accepting what Jesus said. They can't deny people that. They don't have the power to do that. And a lady, a lady that I know who was married to a cousin of mine, Marilda, she said something to me by the hospital, and our oldest went into tears because there were some people in my family that I wasn't necessarily acting the right way to or saying the right things about. So this is what we have to all begin to think. How can we make the challenges which people have easier so that they can be holier? Not holier than thou, but holier. Lead much more wholesome lives. And that is always pointing people in the direction that Jesus was pointing them in. If we are going to leave people with challenges, with broken homes, while we go out to encourage people who love each other because of their being of the same sex, to create the same havoc and the same disorganization and the same frustration that we've done with black people having marriage in slave societies and in the aftermath that destroy the whole fabric of the society, and nobody has the nerve to admit it and to do something, to put some money there to try to repair these problems. And this is one of the reasons why I was saying we need to build a community. We need to, because the community is where we have control. I don't have control over their lives and who they sleep with and how many children they make, but I have control over, or could have control over, the quality of the community that they live in and the receptibility of the community in terms of helping people to be able to manage. We remember saying the village raised the children. It takes a village to raise a child. That is it. We never say it took a man, a woman, married to raise a child. We say it took a village. It takes a village to raise a child. So, okay, let's put some money in the village. Let's have programs. You see, when government has all this money, and all they can think about doing with this money is to keep it, to show the people that they have money. But can they show the people that they patched anything up in the communities? That they come to people coming to discussions and being able to agree on certain things, to work certain things out, to come together to be able to build the communities? Because if we build the communities, then the communities would take care. It would be the village that would help to raise the child. It takes a village. When people are working and they have to leave their children at home and it costs so much for a little after school, man, look, let me tell you the truth, boys. Sometimes I wonder how is it that working people, working mothers in particular, can make it in the Cayman Islands. It's a hard thing. It's hard for poor people. And I want people to start talking in this country about that, how hard it is for poor people, and not about people's sexual preferences. Let people choose what they want, and let us stop making people bloody choose wickedness all the time. Wickedness is exploiting people, causing people not to have enough food. And people can't tell me that's not a reality, because I live it every day in this country. I live it for so long. I lived it for so long. I would run away, but I'm too old to run now. So I can just stay here until I die. But I can tell you one thing. I am not going to let myself down by kowtowing to evil men that just want power, just want the comfort of an office that provides them with the economic substance that I'm denied. That they will say anything to keep their position, they will please anything, like whores. I am not one. The truth has such great value to me, although everything I say can't be truth, but I'm trying. I'm trying to reach the mark. I'm trying to reach that spot within myself and to communicate that what is really important is that people have love, that they have love in their heart for other men and women. Not that they could come shaking a Bible in my face, because I see most of them are hypocrites and parasites. They don't care about people. You don't see them doing things for the orphanage, for the orphans and the widows and the handicaps and those people. So we need, if we're going to critique other people's behavior, we need to tell ourselves, first of all, that we're without fault. So we are entitled to cast the first stone. It's a catharsis. A catharsis is a very important word that I feel. Because I always feel conflicted in my society. Because I don't want to upset anybody. So yes, I would love to have the possibility to agree with everybody. But I saw the letter that my sister wrote on Facebook. Her position, talking about the judge there. But we are being judged here. We're being judged now. This is judgment. And people don't realize it. This is judgment time. We're being judged. And so we should watch very carefully how we judge others. Because we might end up in the pot, or the basket, or the casket. We have to be very careful. And I just want to say one thing to Sandy Hill. I'm very proud of her. I've been watching some of the shows lately because I've taken some time away from the work that I'm doing. And it's a one-man battle you have, but I'm familiar with that kind of battle. I'm familiar with it. Takes a lot of nerves. But the people in the Cayman Islands, a lot of people in the Cayman Islands are changing. They're changing. You see, when God wants to change people, he changes people. He makes a time for everyone. Makes a time for everyone and a place for everyone. I used to think about this place being the New Jerusalem. I even wrote an article about Towards the New Jerusalem and the magazine that I used to publish. And what I'm saying is that with the money that's coming in here, with the quality of education that we could have here, with the quality of society, we need some people to be idealistic about building that society. And people like Sandy Hill that has lived other places, she lived in America too, and she saw a lot of what was good, but a lot of what was wrong, and a lot of what actually ate America out. Began like a cancer in America. And America is suffering from that now. So if she says, hey, guy, and her references in scripture were good, her entire understanding of how the Jews introduce the whole idea of the sexuality and those particular topics in the Old Testament, and what kind of societies they had at that particular time. All these things are important for people to understand if they are to make decisions with regards to this. Because some people say, well, I'm just doing it because I don't like that. Okay, fine and good. That's your decision about yourself. You don't have a right to make the decision about somebody else. Or, well, I don't like that because the Bible tells me not to like that. And the Bible tells me what to do about this, and the Bible tells me what to do about that. But if you read the Bible, you could see that each one of us would have a different point of view after reading the Bible, like just about reading any book. We don't all think the same way simply because we read the same passages in the Bible. And that's good, because you imagine if there was only one approach to Scripture, one approach to reading the Bible. It would be a boring conversation. The consciousness level of people would deteriorate. It would stagnate. So variety is good for us. It's good that we could disagree or agree to disagree. And that is why you want to elect people to your parliament that are going to be honest contributors to the debates. The debate is the soul of the whole parliament. It's the reason why you give them the protection that you give them, so that they can freely express what has to be expressed in order to peruse the issue and to be able to make concise decisions that will be beneficial to all, not to their re-election campaigns. It is that type of behavior, again, that I am surprised with. I am surprised that there are people in our society that are showing their true face with regards to not having any respect for the wages that people are earning. That the government is the one that are taking the cost of living increase, statistics, inflation statistics, and I don't think they're doing it right. Because the amount of money that it takes to feed a family of 4 per week here is just outrageous. The country is too expensive. There is too much inflation. There is too much attempt to get rich right away. There needs to be some type of price control of certain things in this country. It's not saying that, I'm saying that as a suggestion, I'm not saying that as a law, which means if I say so, the first thing that people would do would be investigate to see if that is actually something that is workable or not. But we have to begin to realize that when we have the kind of indirect taxation system, that the indirect taxation system destroys the little man. And an economist like Chris Saunders could probably point that out to you. because of what is involved in him paying each time. I mean, if you borrow money from the bank, boom, the tax is on there, government tax. You want a mortgage, government tax. You want road tax, government tax. Every time the little man turn around, the government is bloody taxing it. The government are no friend of the poor person. No government. I don't know of any country where the government is really the friend of the poor person. I mean, normally what happens is that the government are the friends of the rich, because it's the rich that pay for the political campaign. And you notice here, nobody's interested in building any political parties so that you might be able to teach people how to understand political debates, how to understand what a nation is, how to understand what a constitution is. And you notice they're not teaching our children that in school. Miss Julie promised that she was going to get Roy after he left, retired, to write some books, and I would probably be helping Dr. Roy and putting some things together where the kids would have some access to Caymanian thought and Caymanian level of understanding social challenges and perhaps even religious issues or this or that, the other. But of course, she claims that she couldn't get any support from her colleagues for that. Now, I never had a problem getting, when I was in government, getting support from my colleagues for the most things. I mean, I don't know, maybe that because I was with McKeever Bush, and I wanted to do things for the people, and McKeever always wanted to do things for the people. But I don't know why is it that this government can't see that part of the problem of education is that there's no material in the classroom that gives people a connection between their education and their environment. If everything is foreign, the books are foreign, the teachers are foreign, how the hell the children gonna learn? When learning have to do with imitation, how are they going to have the desire to imitate always people that they believe is in conflict with their interests? You think them kids stupid? You think their parents don't talk around them at home? You think they don't know who these foreigners are? These kids wise. That's why they go and take over the school. They run the school. The teachers don't run the school. The government don't run the school. The kids run the school. And we know all this. We know all this because we study the problem. We know the problem, but they don't put people in there to help with formulating the program, the academic program, based upon the understanding of the psychology and the sociology of the students and the students' parents and environment. How do you teach a child without knowing what the family structure and influence is on the child? We have to spend a lot of time in profiling the children, and then I bet if you increase the number of counselors in the school, you would increase the performance in the school as well. You could put as much money as you want in buildings, but if you don't put the money in human resources, it's going to be a waste of time. It's going to be a waste of time. And this is what we try to say to them. Why is it that you're building this big weight on top of the country by bringing in people who are skilled, by bringing in people who have a much more open view of the world, by having people who are competitive and have the ability to compete against people who are still basically encouraged to live in a with a village mentality. When you ask them to make a decision based upon scripture that they don't want something to happen, and they're using scripture as an argument. So we are in a different age in a way, and we're bringing in people who are in a distant age in the future. And they are competing against us with the knowledge of the future, and we have just the knowledge of today. We have to lose. But these are the things that people need to be looking at, and the people need to be discussing in this country. What helps us? Why it doesn't help us? Why is it that government has so much money to spend on education, but it doesn't spend it on making it possible to have people that are in the educational system that are doing, for instance, music and art and poetry and different things like that. Because these kids not coming from the primary, from the private school and from their rich law office fathers and all that, doesn't mean that these kids are not gifted with this type of spiritual talent to be the most creative people. And I've noticed that at Northwood. I mean, these guys can go into their subconscious to a level where they find a different kind of intelligence in reality than you would ever think about. You could never get so deep, and you could never do the kinds of poetry and rhymes and have the kind of sense that they make. So sometimes you have to educate people by finding what they're interested in. So you take the interest and you build your program of education into that particular interest that they have. So we tried when we built the little music studio down in Scranton, and we had a little resource center there. That was part of the idea. The idea is, okay, they're interested in music. So if they're interested in this kind of music, I can pull them by having this resource there. Once they're there, then we start communicating with each other. And Erica Patterson, she knows, Dr. Erica Patterson, she knows about the whole thing about the communicative type of research. So what it allows is, once the communication begins to go, that you learn to know the reality of that person through communication and not through just asking them a question. So a lot of times when the social researchers are just asking questions, they're getting what the children believe or the young people believe is the answer they want to hear. But we need to be able to go deeper than that to really understand what is really impacting people. I'm saying all I'm saying to say that I'm happy that discussions have started. I'm happy that what Sandy Hill is doing. I'm happy with the whole idea that more people are using the Facebook medium to do their own comments and to express the fact that none of us are right, but we are trying to be as correct as we are capable of being at the time in which we're making our presentation. It doesn't mean that everything we say today that we have to hold fast to tomorrow, because certainly it could mean also that we might have a change in terms of the way we see these things, or somebody might talk to us and that might enlighten us, and so as a result of that, the process of learning is a lifelong process. It's not something that comes to an end. So we have to just keep learning, keep our minds open, and be receptive. And I'm going to try to see if I get onto Sandy's show soon, and maybe speak with her, because I think that she could probably bring out some good things. I didn't want to get too much involved with talking until I had gotten this work at least a point where I say I got at least one manuscript that I can send off, because this is really crazy how long this thing has taken me. But the fact that I really felt that I should say something to publicly, because of the fact of my closeness to Myrta, and I know that it's not just a law that was being brought there. It was being brought because of the passionate appeal which two young people, two young lovers have made to their parents and to this society through their parents and through their attorney. And I just want to say that we don't need to dislike ourselves because of the positions that we take. We need to just have respect for how people feel when they are rejected and when they're ostracized and all of that stuff. And and I think that God will make us all winners if we look a little bit deeper than our own personal interests and our own personal vanity. So with that being said, good night and God bless you all, and thank you all that watch. And I hope that I was coherent enough to at least get out the most important things, which was the disappointment in which the motion failure brought to my attention, that nobody really took it serious, and that I feel was a big mistake. Good night and thank you.
Raise your voice if it's not fair.